Who's on top of the world, and who needs to dig themselves out of a rut? Let's take a look at my top 5 and bottom 5 so far in this NHL season, coming up next. Yo ho everybody, and welcome to another edition of Yinzer on Hockey. Before we begin, make sure you go down below, hit that like button, click the subscribe button, and make sure you click that little bell so you stay up to date on all of the NHL happenings. So, I want to take a real quick look at the early part of the NHL season. Most teams are anywhere from 6 to 9 games into the season. So you're starting to get a feel for how teams are playing and how they're performing over the first part of the season. So I want to start off with looking at my bottom 5 teams in the NHL. These are the teams that I think are either underachieving or kind of cementing themselves in the draft lottery conversation, so to speak. A couple of honorable mentions here, probably just outside the top 5, but are threatening to crack this bottom 5 here, and that's Edmonton and St. Louis. Both of those teams have been somewhat disappointing to start the season, especially St. Louis. A lot of expectations for them coming into the year with all the additions they made. They did make some strides against Toronto the other night, had a really good performance, and then gave up a late lead last night to Winnipeg in a game that it looked like St. Louis honestly had wrapped up, but just couldn't finish out. So, and that's been kind of a trend with them. So we'll see how they rebound going forward. And Edmonton just really have lacked any type of productivity from anybody not named Connor McDavid so far this season. And that was their Achilles heel last week, was getting scoring outside of Connor McDavid, and doesn't look like they did anything to address that this year. So number 5 in my bottom 5, and these are kind of least bad to bad. So number 1 will be the worst. Number 5 is the Arizona Coyotes. Started off the season 2-5-0. So they've accrued 4 points in 7 games with a -6 goal differential. Just not getting a lot of offense. They didn't get their first goal until like the 3rd game of the season. Their power play hasn't been clicking. There was a point in the season when they had more shorthanded goals than they had power play goals. So see if they can get right. There was a lot of expectations for Arizona coming into the season. We'll see if they can rebound and start trending in the right direction. Next up, number 4 on the list is the Florida Panthers. This was a team that I had pegged to go to the playoffs this year. I thought adding Mike Hoffman would give them the scoring that they needed to kind of get over that hump and get past their offensive woes, but they really haven't been able to get a whole lot going offensively outside of their top line. They've been carrying the weight most of the season. They do have some injuries mounting up. Luongo was still hit or miss with his injury situation, so we'll see how well they recover once they start getting healthy again and get their roster put back together, see which direction they get heading. I do look for Florida to bounce back. They've always been a slow starting team, so we'll see if they bounce back. Next up, number 3 on the list is the New York Rangers. They've started off the season 2-5-1, so they've accrued 5 points in 8 games. They have a -9 goal differential. I think most people knew that this was going to be this type of season for New York. They've embraced the rebuild, and they've been getting better performances as the season has went along. I think they'll be fine with this rebuild going forward. Maybe 2 to 3 years down the road, they'll be a competitive team again. Unfortunately, it'll probably be post Henrik Lundqvist, but he's still been stellar for the most part through this part of the season. Next up is the Los Angeles Kings. And if I had to hand out an award for the most disappointing team so far, Los Angeles Kings would probably be it. Adding Ilya Kovalchuk, you'd figure they would be able to get some scoring. That was pretty much what ended their playoff run last year, was not being able to score. They haven't been able to score this year either. They are 2-5-1. They have a -13 goal differential so far this year. They had a closed-door meeting on Sunday with the team. Rob Blake, John Stevens, everybody trying to get everybody to rally together and get motivated and get moving on into the season. We'll see if that has any effect moving forward. Honestly, they just look like what they are, and that's an old and slow team. They can't keep pace with the younger and faster, talented teams that are coming up through the league, and I look for that to be a continuing trend. I don't know if I expect Los Angeles to really recover from this start, but we'll see. It's a long season. They're only 8 games in, so we'll see if they can bounce back. And of course, number 1 on this list is the Detroit Red Wings. Started off the season 1-6-2, so they've accrued 4 points in 9 games. They have a -19 goal differential. Through a lot of these games, Detroit has been pretty competitive, and even has held leads late in games. Just hasn't been able to really finish out the deal. We'll see. They have a lot of young guys on this roster. Maybe as they acclimate to the league and acclimate to the pace of the game and everything, maybe they do steal a couple of games and get a little bit better. I think this was kind of the expectation for Detroit fans this year. They're still a year or two off of their rebuild process. They got a couple of heavy contracts coming off the books at the end of this season. So we'll see if they can, expedite that rebuild starting next year with all that extra cap flexibility that they're going to have. So now we're going to move into my top 5, and these are teams that I have thought that are performing up to their expectations, or really maybe even exceeding expectations in some parts. But these are who I think are the most complete teams in the NHL right now at this stage of the season. Again, most teams in that 6 to 8 game range. There's a few that have 9 or 10 games played, but 6 to 8 seems to be the consensus among most of the teams. A couple of honorable mentions for me here. The New Jersey Devils started off very hot, 4-0 in their first 4 games. They've dropped their last 2, so let's see if they can get it turned back around and heading in the right direction. Carolina Hurricanes, they've been an exciting team to watch through the first part of this season. Lots of energy, lots of excitement around that team. The Anaheim Ducks have been really good for what they are. They're a defensive team that has been able to capitalize on their opportunities to score goals. They've been getting outshot in most every game they play in, but when they take shots, they're getting to the back of the net. So we'll see if they can continue that trend. And the Calgary Flames, Johnny Gaudreau is inserting himself into the conversation of elite players in the NHL. He just continues to do amazing things. Scored his 300th point the other night. Very young career, so he's on a very great pace for scoring. And like I said, getting himself in that elite category of players in the NHL. So let's start off. Number 5 on my list is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They started off pretty well, 6-1. They're 6-3 now. They have a +4 goal differential. Their Achilles heel has been their defense. They give up a lot of shots on goal, put their goaltenders in a pretty tight spot at times, facing a lot of shots. But they have the offense to overcome a lot of those deficiencies. We'll see if it's enough to get them into that top tier. I think right now, I think they're an elite team for sure, but I don't know if they are still that Stanley Cup favorite. I think you still need, maybe they need to find themselves another defenseman, somebody to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off of Morgan Riley, who's been one of the better offensive defensemen this year. So we'll see if he continues that pace. But they do need some help to back him up. Next up on the list, the Winnipeg Jets, 6-2-1 in the early part of the season, +5 goal differential. Their top line has been amazing. Scheifele, Little, those guys have been scoring a ton, getting supplemental scoring from Line A, and Wheeler and guys like that. Bufflin coming back from injury, he's been playing really well. Trouba's been very good. Their goaltending's been really good. One of the more balanced teams in the NHL, I think, and are going to pose a threat going forward in the Western Conference. Excuse me. Next up on the list is the Colorado Avalanche. This was a team that I thought was going to take a step back this year. They've not done that at all. They have lived right up to the expectations that they built off the end of last season. They're 6-1-2, plus 13. Quite possibly the best line in hockey right now playing. Rantanen, Landeskog, Nathan McKinnon. They do have to find some depth behind them, but that line right now is playing as good as any line in the NHL and will continue to do so, I think, moving forward. Number 2 on my list is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are 5-1-1 to start the season. They do have one of the lighter schedules. They've only played 7 games so far, plus 10 goal differential. The second period onslaught that they put on Chicago the other night was something to watch. Man, they were peppering shots left and right. 33 shots on goal in a period. This is a team that loves to generate a lot of shots, likes to get the pucks on net, and then get in there and get those grindy goals. Guys like Killorn, Callahan, Yanni Gourde, those guys like to get in those dirty areas and play, get those dirty rebounds and score goals. And it's working out for them. They are playing phenomenal right now. Best penalty kill in all of hockey right now with a 95.2% penalty kill percentage so far. They don't take a ton of penalties to begin with, but when they do, they've been able to kill them off. John Cooper's got this squad playing quite well so far. And number 1 on the list, not a surprise here, Nashville Predators. They've started the season 7-1, plus 12 goal differential, and they've been doing their damage all at 5-on-5. They only have an 11.2% penalty power play percentage. Their penalty kill is only like 70-some percent, so nothing spectacular for their special teams. Just dominating at the 5-on-5 games. So we'll see how well they are able to continue moving forward. They did lose Pekka Rinne to an injury the other night, so UC Saros is going to be carrying the load for them for the next few games at least. So we'll see how well he's able to perform moving forward. So let me know in the comments below, guys. Do you agree with my top 5 and bottom 5? You want to move teams around? Where would you put them? How would you rank them? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the video. And until I see you again next time, have a good day.